Hey everyone, Underdog Jess here, and yes, I'm female. Shocking, I know. A female that plays Yu-Gi-Oh! Who'd have thought? Anyway, I'd like to start by saying thank you for watching my How to Play for Hire 101 and 102. I appreciate all the feedback and support I've gotten from that, and it was just more than I thought it would be, just for a goofy meme video. As some of you may notice though, I neglected to put a deck list at the end of my 102. That's because I wanted to make an in-depth video about my choices for the deck, and well, here we are. Just a thing or two before we start, this is a deck from How to Play for Hire 102, so needless to say, competitive viability is not the focus here. If you're looking to play for hire competitively, then this may not be the right deck profile for you. I recommend trying to find another one that might be more your thing. And secondly, I have quite a lot of other videos planned in the future in terms of Yu-Gi-Oh!, Cardfight Vanguard, Let's Plays, maybe pack openings, I'm not too sure, but we'll see. If you guys want to see that, then I guess I will do it. So if you like what you see and want to stay tuned, please hit like, subscribe and check the bell for notifications. Okay, let's just get into it. First of all, the monsters. Like an integral part of every deck, you need monsters. I'm looking at you, Sky Strikers. Those of you that are familiar with For Hire will know that monsters For Hire come in two flavors. For the sake of this video, I'm going to divide these monsters into Type A and Type B. Type A monsters For Hire are always level 4 or lower and possess two different hard ones per turn effects. The first effect is shared by all Type A monsters For Hire, and it states that once per turn they can special summon a monster For Hire from the hand who has a different name to the monster that's using that effect. For example, Beat can summon any monster For Hire except another Beat. Pretty straightforward, I think. I know how hard card games are for some people. The second effect trigger whenever a monster For Hire is special summoned while that monster is on the field, and each one of these effects is unique to each monster you play. This, of course, determines your ratios. As for myself, I'm running Beat, Bladesman For Hire, Seal Strategist For Hire and Philo Messenger For Hire at 3 copies each. They're the most important monsters in the deck, you need to run them at 3. Beat will search you another monster For Hire, Seal will retrieve a monster For Hire from the graveyard to your hand, and Philo summons a monster For Hire back to the field from the graveyard, but that monster will return to the deck when it leaves the field in any way. All 3 of these cards are powerful combo extenders, and having access to just one of them alongside other monsters For Hire can set up some real nasty plays. Case in point, How to Play For Hire 102, where I was able to rebuild a nuke board and OTK from just Beat and Philo. You guys might see that if you go watch the 102. I recommend it, it's very good. Shameless plug. Now, moving on from combo extenders to utility workers, I use 2 copies each of Bravo Fighter For Hire, who will buff all monsters For Hire by 500 attack points, which can come in very useful. Dumper Marksman For Hire, who destroys a face-up card, and Helmer, Hellman's For Hire, who lets you discard a card For Hire to draw a card. Pretty good to, again, extend combos and also maybe get an important spell or trap you need in your hand. I also run a singular copy of Recon, Scout For Hire, who destroys face-down monsters. Dumper and Recon are both excellent for disposing of problematic or worrisome cards at a moment's notice, and can even be great disruptors if you're planning to trigger their effects in the opponent's turn, which I recommend doing. It makes your opponent's rage quit, and it's hilarious. Bravo helps to push for the final points of damage in the endgame, as well as acting as a barrier to hand traps during effect chains. More on this in a moment. Lastly, Helmer is useful for getting rid of duplicate monsters For Hire in your hand, which I just touched upon, in exchange for digging a little deeper into the deck, and that's all of the Type A monsters For Hire in this deck. And now for a pro tip of playing this deck. If you have the resources to do so, it's often in your best interest to wait until you have accumulated a few monsters before resolving the second effects of your monsters For Hire. The reason for this is that if 2 monsters For Hire see another monster For Hire get special summoned, both of their effects trigger at the same time. In situations like this, it's up to you what the chain order is. If Beat tried to resolve by himself, he'd be very liable to get hit by Ash Blossom and you'd miss out on your search, which can be crippling to this deck. It's happened to me many times and there's just no coming back from it. So I recommend resolving Beat as Chainlink 1 and an effect which doesn't go into your deck as Chainlink 2 or higher. Then Ash Blossom can't stop you since it can only be used to respond to the highest link in the chain. Most of the negators work in the same way, so use this to your advantage and get the cards you need. And now for the Type B monsters for hire. These guys are level 5 and higher, and also have 2 unique hard once per turn effects. There are 4 of them in total, however I'm only running 2 right now. And in my case, that's 3 copies of Rafal Champion for hire, and 2 copies of Wiz Sage for hire. I'd also like to have run Dinah and Sagita, but simply put, I didn't have space. It is what it is. I can't really play more than 40 cards. Well, I could, but if you can find that space, then by all means run them yourself, but I personally can't. Onto their effects. Rafal can excavate as many cards as monsters per hire you control other than himself. For example, if you have 5 monsters per hire, including Rafal, he excavates 4 and then you add one of those to your hand. He can also negate a monster effect by discarding a card per hire from your hand. But unlike most negators, it won't destroy the card, so make sure whatever monster you negate is a hard once per turn. Not like me and Galaxy Soldier when I didn't realise, which is also in my 102, so go watch it. Shameless plug again. Wiz is similar except that she will increase your life points by 500 points for each monster for hire you control, except Wiz, when she's special summoned. Wiz is also a negator except that she stops spells and traps from activating. Typically, having both Wiz and Rafal on board with a decently sized hand means you're in a very good position. And that does it for the monsters for hire. The last monster I play is a tech that many of you have enjoyed in previous videos. I've had so much feedback about it. I say so much, there's like 3 comments, I don't know. But you all like it for a good reason, as it presents so many options to for hire, it's unbelievable. The card I'm speaking about, of course, is Red Resonator. I have 3 copies of that. The reason I run Red Resonator is primarily for its effect on normal summon, which will let you special summon another level 4 or lower monster from the hand to the field. This essentially makes it an honorary for hire monster. Your primary use for Red Resonator in this deck is to use it to make Folgo with a minimal number of monsters per hire. This is because it's a fiend monster, and as such it doesn't overlap with any of the types of your monsters for hire you may play, and it can always be used for material for Folgo regardless of which other monsters per hire that you have. However, Red Resonator being a tuner on top of this allows you to access synchro plays. This card even has its own searcher, but we'll get into that later. It may not be for hire, but with the amount of spiciness it provides to the deck, it fits right in. And that's it for the monsters, totaling 24 of them. Moving on to spells now, we're starting with such a staple card in a for hire deck, Mayhem for hire. You need to run it at 3 copies, because if you run it at any less, you're gonna have a hard time. It's basically an in-archetype monster reborn and an in-archetype back to the front, like combined. And it summons a monster for hire from the graveyard in defense position when activated. Since it's a quick play spell, you can use it in your opponent's turn if you set it at the end of your turn. As a monster reborn, clone is already great at extending combos. However, it can be argued that one of the best plays you can make is to flip this card in your opponent's turn while you have a Domper on board. By doing so, you can destroy one of their cards mid-combo with Domper's effect and potentially ruin their entire turn. If you also have Folgo on board, you can draw 3, but we'll get into that later. This card is too good to run at less than 3, so make sure you do. Next up, we have some staples. 1 Monster Reborn, which is very useful for combo extension and comebacks, basically. It also allows you to steal one of your opponent's monsters if you really need to, in order to gain extra benefits. Like, I did that in 102, I stole their Gem Knight monster, which allowed me to get another normal summon after they negated my other normal summon or destroyed the monster. I forget, it's been a while. 2 Twin Twisters, because back row is one of Verhire's greatest weaknesses, and the more of it you can get rid of, the better. So I recommend running that at 2. If you can fit it in, then 3. And 3 copies of Cold by the Grave, because any card that can break for highest combos early is a death sentence. Looking at you, Ash Blossom, and Effect Veiler. Never be without 3 in case Effect Veiler tries to ruin your day, which it will because people that play Yu-Gi-Oh! Don't like you to have fun. No offense to anyone. Unfortunately, it cannot do anything about infinite impermanence or evenly matched, but that's life, you just have to get on with it. You can always negate it with Wiz, I think. It depends on the chain. As for searching spells, I play 1 copy of Reinforcement of the Army, or Rotor if you want. There's only 1 warrior monster in the entirety of the main deck, which is Beat. But Beat is such an integral card to the for hire strategy that you need to get him into your hand as soon as possible. Running Rotor is justified, even if it's just a 1 copy. For similar reasons, I also run a single copy of 1 for 1, even though the only target in the deck is Philo. But again, Philo is such an important card, I cannot stress that enough, and getting it on board as soon as you can is a must. Not to mention, 1 for 1 gets Philo on board without using your normal summon, so you can also use this card to play around a single negate that your opponent may have. And finally, I play 2 copies of Resonator Call. This searches for the aforementioned red resonator, and when one of your spiciest techs has a searching spell, there's really no excuse for running it. So that wraps up the spells for a total of 12 cards. Finally, traps. It's very straightforward. I run 2 back to the front and a single copy of Call of the Haunted. We use these for the same reason as Mayhem for Hire, for combo extension. The final card is another attack for extending your combos and providing link material, which is the Phantom Knights of Shade Brigandine. There are only 4 traps in my deck, so I figured it made sense to add this as an additional extender, and it's worked really well so far. The only downside to this card is that it summons itself as a warrior monster. That means if you use this card to summon Volgo, you cannot summon Beat from your deck. It kind of sucks sometimes, but there's no shortage of ways to get Beat on board, so I will let it slide. And that's it for the main deck. Moving on, now it's the time for the moment you have probably all been waiting for since watching my For Hire 102, and seeing some of my crazy shenanigans I was pulling. My extra deck is primarily Link monsters, as For Hire naturally excels at Link spamming, so this is where we'll start. We begin with 2 copies of Volgo Justice for Hire, and this card is truly the crux of the deck. In fact, I cannot remember a single game I've ever played in the entire history of playing for Hire in which I passed up an opportunity to make Volgo if I was able to. It's that good. It takes 3 monsters with different types to link summon it. Since most monsters for Hire are different types from one another, with the only overlap in my deck being Dompa and Recon, this is never an issue. But when you link summon it, it summons any monster for hire from your deck in defense position that you like, so long as that monster doesn't share its type with any of the monsters you use to link summon Volgo. Volgo is such an incredibly powerful combo extender already, but he gets even better. Whenever one of your opponent's cards gets destroyed in any circumstance, even if they destroy it themselves for a card effect, Volgo will draw you a card. However, if you control 3 or more different monsters for hire when that card is destroyed, you can draw 3 cards instead. This alone makes for hire playable, as before Volgo, whilst they could fill up the board in the blink of an eye, they ran out of resources far too quickly to be good, and had no means of continuing after link summoning. Volgo resolves both of these issues with ease, and as such it will always be the go-to link monster for this deck. He's also a monster for hire, as you could tell with his name, so his link summon will actually trigger the secondary effects of your type A monsters for hire, which we talked about earlier. Since Volgo's summon is so important, use the chain order trick I told you about earlier to make sure Volgo doesn't get Ash Blossomed. The only downside to this card is that you can't use Volgo as link material, but it would probably be ban worthy if it could be used, so let's let sleeping dogs lie. I only played 2 of him, as I found 3 was a little overkill and I never used 3, but if you guys want to play 3, then who am I to tell you otherwise? That's the great thing about Yu-Gi-Oh! We can all just take a deck list and put our own little twist to it. Next up are some of the more commonly played link monsters, starting with Borrelsword Dragon for ending games and sweeping away big unaffected monsters. Borrelode Dragon can accomplish the same thing when the monster in question can be an asset to me, even though it never made an appearance in For Hire 102. Sorry buddy, maybe next time. We also run one copy each of Nightmare Phoenix and Nightmare Cerberus, not only for disposing of problem cards and setting up mayhem plays later, but also for link climbing into the other cards in the deck, which we will talk about later. I also run one copy of Brute Enforcer, which may seem like a strange choice to a lot of people, but I don't use this card for its effect but for link climbing. If you watch my 102, you know what it is I aim for, but we'll get there. Another card I've been having a lot of fun with recently is quite a surprising choice since it's appearing outside of a Cyberse deck, and that card is Access Code Talker. It's proven to be as potent as Borrelsword Dragon can when it comes to OTKing the opponent, as it can have a high attack right out of the gate. But not only because of that, because by banishing a link monster either from your field or your graveyard, you can destroy one of your opponent's cards without targeting it. This can be repeated as many times as you have differently attributed link monsters in your graveyard. Non-targeted removal is already excellent, but the best part is that your opponent cannot respond to this effect. If your deck link spams, then definitely consider running this card. I also play the one copy of Decode Talker purely for buffing Access Code Talker by 3000 attack points. Normally I'd use Folgo for this, but since he can't be used as link material, this will have to do. Feel free to place it with another link monster if you so choose. Again, it's your choice. And now, possibly for the most out there link monster in this deck, one that nobody will ever expect to see outside of its intended deck. The card is such a powerhouse with very few outs to it, and For Hire can make it with such a minimal amount of effort, it's unbelievable. The card I'm talking about, of course, is the Arrival Cyberse at Ignista. It's unaffected by all card effects, it can destroy one card your opponent controls once per turn, and he also gives you a token. He gets 1000 attack points per monster you use for its link summon, and its summoning condition is at least 3 monsters with different attributes, which monsters For Hire all are. And since it's a link 6, we do need to use the 2 link monsters from earlier to climb into it, since we can't use Folgo as a material. But if you can make this, then the game is pretty much yours in 9 instances out of 10. There are some outs to it, mainly kaijus. Also, Borrelsword Dragon can swing over it, as even though its attack stealing effect won't decrease the Arrival's attack, Borrelsword can still gain attack and swing over it and destroy it. Since the Arrival is extremely resource intensive, always make sure that you have a decent amount of backup in case your opponent is able to get over it. I will admit the card is gimmicky as hell, but it's fun, it's wacky, and at the end of the day, this is a deck profile used in a How to Play 101 video. That's it for the link monsters now, so with Red Resonator being a tuner, let's move on to the 3 synchros I play in this deck. The first, of course, is Trishula, Dragon of the Ice Barrier. Once again, it's not 101 without Trishula being shoehorned into the deck somehow, but it actually works great with Red Resonator and For Hire, as gathering the right levels on board is extremely easy. Not to mention that Trishula's non-targeting banish effect can make a devastating blow to the opponent, so it fits right in with the deck. Next up is Borrelode Savage Dragon, and I play this card because of the amount of link spamming you can do in this deck, and it just makes Savage right at home in For Hire. Although you shouldn't be aiming to make it with maxed out counters on your first turn since you can't link Folgo away. So if the game drags on, then use Savage to seal the deal. Lastly, for even wackier plays, we have Muddy Mud Dragon in the deck. This is a synchro that leads into fusion plays, and once again, Red Resonator makes this card a piece of cake to make. The amount of options it breaks open really is tremendous. However, Muddy Mud Dragon is only as good as the fusion monsters it can make, and the options I have chosen take up the last 2 slots in my extra deck. The first slot goes to Invoke Raijin, which is made by using Muddragon's effect to replace Alistair the Invoker, and fused with either Domper, Recon or Philo. Raijin is great as a disruptor by turning one of your opponent's cards face down and potentially stopping any plays they could make. It's a very cheesy thing to do, but desperate times call for desperate measures, and Raijin is a desperate measure. And secondly, of course, is Dragoon of Red Eyes, which is made by Muddragon replacing Dark Magician and fusing with Rafal. Loads of players have bandwagoned onto Dark Magician as a deck for this card, along with how broken it is. Untargetable effect negator, which gets progressively harder to beat over, is nothing to sneeze at. And that's it for my deck. I hope it was worth the wait. And that's my deck profile. Feel free to leave your own suggestions down in the comments. I always look forward to seeing feedback or seeing other decks that you guys run. To sum all of this up, For Hire is a deck I really enjoy. It's quite easy to learn, and you can fit so many different techs and gimmicks within the deck itself. Maybe even using it as an engine in other archetypes such as Orcust, but I won't go into detail as my deck doesn't focus on that. If you're looking for that, then try and find someone else, I'm afraid. Another reason I enjoy them so much is due to the fact that it suits my playstyle to a T. For Hire has the potential to be somewhat aggro and a little bit of a jack of all trades kind of archetype, which I've always found fun in card games. I know it does play like a little bit like a one-trick pony, but the interactions with your opponent, such as what they do, effects you can negate, effects they can negate, outs to their plays, and so on and so forth, it always seems to make each game different, so it never really gets boring. At least in my opinion. I do recommend everyone try the deck at least once if you haven't already. It's a great budget deck thanks to most of the For Hires and their spell and chart support, receiving reprints in the latest gold tin, and it's just so much fun. Unfortunately, it has no competitive viability due to being inherently weak, and it can be put in check by hand traps or other cards that can either negate effects, disrupt your combos, or just stop you playing Yu-Gi-Oh! As a whole. Some key examples being Ash Blossom, Zombie World, and Infinite Impermanent, so I don't recommend taking it to official tournaments unless you just want to have fun. In which case, go crazy, you psychos. The last thing I wanted to talk about was a little different to For Hire, so I hope you guys don't mind. I'm currently planning a new mini-series for my channel which is devoted to Yu-Gi-Oh! And I must confess, I do not know how to play any other deck really apart from For Hire and Exodia, but we don't talk about Exodia. Because of this, I'm planning a new mini-series called Underdog Test, and it's going to be me just basically trying out decks I've never tried before in order to try and learn them while providing you all with awkward or funny commentary. Like, there's no middle ground, it's either awkward or funny, but we will see. So with that said, if you guys have any deck suggestions for me that aren't super technical right off the bat, because I can't deal with super technical things, it's kind of hard to learn, I gotta admit, just let me know. I will also be willing to play some of you guys if you're up for it. Again, just let me know and we will arrange a game or two. Okay, that's pretty much everything now. But if you guys have any further questions for me about For Hire or anything, I'd be happy to answer for you. As always, thanks for watching. Sorry this video was a while, but I went really in depth because I just wanted to express how much I like this deck. So if you like it, again, hit the like button, subscribe for future Yu-Gi-Oh! Videos or card game videos, maybe Let's Plays as well. Hit the bell to stay updated too. Okay, I will see you guys soon. Thanks for watching.